All right, man. Other teams on the list here. New England Patriots. Already saw the chat talking about the Patriots. And look, let's be serious here. Of the teams that we've listed here, half of them have rookie contract quarterbacks. I mean, I think that is a factor, right? You can throw 15 million here, 12 million there. Like, you can make those types of moves when you have Drake Maye, when you have Caleb Williams, when you have Jaden Daniels, when you have CJ Stroud. Like, those teams might end up on the list here. Maybe not the Texans. We'll see what happens. But the Patriots had money to spend, and they had draft capital, right? So it's almost like if they didn't show up on this list, they were doing something wrong. But they did because they made a lot of additions on both sides of the ball.
And as we said at the start, like, they were awful last year. I mean, the Patriots were probably the worst team in the NFL last year, somehow conspired not to end up with the #1 overall pick. But they were terrible. Like, this was the worst team in the NFL. Of course they were going to get better in an offseason. Like, changing anything would have made it better, with the exception of quarterback. So, like, volume of moves was going to make this team better. But, you know, let's give them credit for some of the moves that they did make, because I think they've done a pretty good job. I mean, they went into it with that incredible war chest of spending room and money to throw at this, right? So they were definitely well positioned to be able to get a lot better. But I think generally they did spend the money on good players or in good places. So number one, you've got the coaching thing, right? They decided to move on from Gerard Mayo immediately. Interesting decision, given how weird that process was to begin with Gerard Mayo kind of anointing him as the successor to Bill Belichick contractually, like way back when, writing it into contracts and stuff. And then immediately, basically within the space of a year, being like, not the guy. And then gravitating back towards Mike Vrabel, right? A guy who apparently technically is not in the Bill Belichick coaching tree, but nonetheless is a sort of old school institutional knowledge type of guy, right? Let's bring in Mike Vrabel from back in the Patriots heyday, because he knows the Patriots way, and he knows how it's supposed to look. So that's the first order of business. I have no problem with either parts of that, really. I think Mayo did enough things that would make you question whether he was going to be the guy going forward, or said enough things that at least made you feel worried about it from the outside. And Vrabel, I think, was unfortunate to be let go from Tennessee. I think he'd done a pretty good job as a head coach. There were, a lot of kind of talk about how well does he work with others, right? Does Mike Vrabel play nice with other parts of the organization? And that's going to be a thing we're not going to know until, like, watching this unfold over the next couple of years. But fundamentally, I think Mike Vrabel is a good head coach.
Yeah, just on the Vrabel thing, repeating what I said 4 or 5 years ago, it was like, hey, this feels like the next Mike Tomlin. He feels like the guy that is going to be so consistent no matter what he has. Remember when the Titans had the #1 seed? I think it was the 2021 season. #1 seed in the NFL, and you're looking up and down their roster. It's like, yeah, they have Derrick Henry, and they have A.J. Brown. They have Jeffrey Simmons on defense. But their defense in particular was a whole bunch of no-name type of players. Like, hey, we're getting the best out of Danico Autry and other various players around the roster. And it was a new star every week. And it's like, man, this just typifies what Mike Vrabel's teams are going to be, just playing above their skis, right? And 22, it falls apart after they trade A.J. Brown, and that was a big part of it, right? John Robinson getting fired, and Vrabel maybe having more personnel control, and that not going well over the next couple of years. And then the Titans wanted to say, hey, we want to add more, be more analytically sound, have more voices in the room, and it just wasn't a fit. Interesting fit here for New England, but I still think Vrabel can coach. That's the bottom line. I think he can coach, and now certainly has far more talent than Mayo had last year in New England.
All right, that's enough of that, Steve. Over 50% of the people listening to this are not subscribed right now. So click that button, and then we can get back to whatever it is Steve's telling you about. I also think, by the way, if you look back at the sort of various points of friction in Tennessee, I think Vrabel was borne out to be correct more often than not when those surface. Now, that's not the whole story. Like, it's not enough to just be right. How you handle it is also a fairly important part of, teamwork, right? Cohabiting with other people. Like, you need to not only be right, but you need to somehow convince everyone else, and actually, like, the process needs to function. It can't just be, I'm right, therefore shut up, right? Like, there's got to be a kind of there's got to be a cohesive team unit working here. So that may be a bigger problem than whether or not Vrabel was right or wrong in each of these individual situations. But I kind of prefer the idea that it looks like he was actually correct when he was trying to make a stand about things. I would prefer that than not only was the guy pissing people off, but he was also dead ass wrong about everything as well. At least he may have been right when he was trying to dig his heels in and trying to make a point. So, let's say I think Vrabel is a good hiring. He's a good coach, and he's been right about quite a lot. And he's stepping into a situation who already has the quarterback, which is a big thing. Now let's see how it works going forward. And then, as we said, look, they had a ton of draft capital and money to spend. Like, they went into this offseason with this insane war chest of spending spree room. They still have like $60 million of cap space, but they brought in some really good players. They won the Milton Williams sweepstakes, which was the big prize, I think, of this free agency, is this kind of young, prime, pass rushing defensive tackle. Carolina wanted him. New England said, not on my watch, and just threw enough money at him that he had to sign with the Patriots.
Yeah, so it was, everybody knew that Drake Maye needed help this offseason. They spent a lot of their free agent money, just because of the way things fell, spent a lot of that money on the defensive side of the ball, Milton Williams and Carlton Davis. Carlton Davis, I think, can still play. He got hurt at the end of last season. Remember, he was a big part of Detroit's defense and their ability to play man coverage. Him and Christian Gonzalez heading into year 3 as a 1-2 punch at corner. I think that's a big offseason move. The Milton Williams one, as you mentioned, they had very little pass rush. They bring in Harold Landry, who I don't think is a great pass rusher, but at least has that familiarity, generally dependable, being out there. So they've added some depth on the defensive side of the ball. And I think 2 big-time players in Milton Williams and Carlton Davis. And then they get into the draft, and then Stefon Diggs, right? Then they start to piece the offense together as the offseason progresses. And maybe it was an overpay, in air quotes, for Stefon Diggs, but given the market at that point and the fact that it's a 1-year deal, they needed some kind of playmaker heading into the draft, so they didn't have to draft 4 receivers. So you've got Diggs. You drafted Kyle Williams. We'll see what happens with Williams, but as soon as he can get into the starting lineup, I think, the opportunity is there. But Stefon Diggs, Mac Hollins, by the way, who was sneaky good last year for Buffalo. So it's not nearly like last year. It was awful. Last year, when you were ranking the Patriots pass catchers and offensive line, it's like offensive line is the worst 1 or 2 offensive lines. Pass catchers, bottom 3. Maybe it might have been the worst of both. Now, look, this year we're not putting them in the top 10. That's not the case. But can they creep back to an average as far as pass catchers go? Can they creep back to an average as far as the offensive line goes? I think that the caution I would bring to the offensive line is, we don't know how Will Campbell is going to handle. He's still a rookie left tackle. Jared Wilson could step in as the starting center, but will he be better than like year 6 of Garrett Bradbury? I don't know right away. The O-line might be better 2 years from now than it is right now, but they've at least done the work to lay. My caution for Patriots fans would be, it still might be a year away. There still might be a little bit more to do on the O-line, a little bit more to do at receiver, but I think everything's certainly moving in the right direction. Where last year at this time, they had the same issues, and you came into the season being like, I don't think they have answers. At least now there are some answers, both potentially short-term, but certainly long-term, for New England moving in the right direction on the offensive side of the ball.
I mean, look, I wouldn't expect either one of those units to be good next year, but the goal is to just not be disastrous, right? Like, let's not have it be actively the reason. Like, Drake Maye last season, to play as well as he did, is genuinely remarkable. Like, when he was put into that lineup, certainly I was saying, like, I don't know if they should make this move for the safety of Drake Maye, like for the benefit of his long-term development. I think it's probably detrimental or harmful for him to play the majority of a season with this supporting cast. Like, it has to be damaging in terms of developing bad habits, in terms of, risking him, exposing him to all these hits, et cetera, et cetera. Not only did he not look like he was developing any kind of bad habits, but I mean, he played at a comparable level to some of these other rookies with a dramatically worse supporting cast behind him. It was, I don't think enough is made of how good he looked with what a crappy situation it was around him. So that's remarkable. Like, if you can just get those 2 supporting elements, receiving core and offensive line, if you can just get those to passable, like, you might have something special in Drake Maye, given what he was doing last season with what was around him. So yeah, I mean, the talent is not there for that offensive line to be good next year, I don't think, but it could be average, right? Creep back to what average, if it can just not suck that's really what we're shooting for here. And honestly, the same kind of thing is true with the receiving core. Like Diggs, sure, very, unknown given age and coming off the ACL. I would be excited by what Kyle Williams can be. Like, he arguably is the best separator in this entire draft. I think he can be a vertical threat as well. Like, he can bring a lot to the table. If he can be something like that, that makes everybody else's job a lot easier, because it's not like some of these other receivers that they have, don't belong on NFL fields. They just don't belong on a receiving core where they have to be as good as anybody else in the unit, right? Like, they basically, somebody or all of them collectively need to amount to a number one receiver. That's not going to happen with this group. But if the best they need to be is a number two or a number three, well, now you've got something you can work with. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.